Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday, happy new week. How are y'all doing on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day? Welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back. Listen, we are going to have a great conversation today because I want to talk about what happens the day you get laid off and what most people get wrong in those first 24 hours. So, if you are just popping in, let's do a quick tech check. Drop a quick hello in the chat. If you can see me and hear me okay, tell me where you are watching or listening from. I just love to see where y'all are at. I am coming at you live from the DC, Denver, Colorado, and welcome back to another episode of Nick at Noon. My name is Nick Scott. I'm the founder and CEO of Her Income Edit. We're an online education platform designed to help women turn their existing skills into coaching income digital products and online businesses so they can earn more, depend less on traditional employment, and start to design a life on your terms. If you haven't already, I encourage you to go get your notebook and your pens or whatever it is that you take notes on. Pop open a notes app on your phone or on your tablet. Text the link to this video to a friend who keeps saying that she wants to do something for herself. Drop the link to this video in your group chat, in your Facebook groups, or whatever it is that you hang out online. Okay? Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I see y'all on YouTube. Thanks for joining. So, I want to talk about something today that most people will not say out loud. And I think you already know what it is because I think you've been thinking about it and maybe even longer than you've wanted to even admit to yourself or anybody else. I want to talk about the day you get laid off. And before you say that this hasn't happened to me or this isn't going to happen to me, I want you to stay with me because this isn't a crisis conversation. This is a clarity conversation. And I promise you, by the time we are done here, you are going to think about your career, your income, and what you're building in a completely different way than when you walked in here thinking about it, okay? So let's start here. I want you just to imagine something for me. All right. I like to do these visionary exercises because I feel like they're very powerful. So it is a Tuesday, maybe it's a Monday, it could be a Wednesday like me, because those are the days that they love to do it, by the way. They like to do this thing early in the week so they can resource manage you off the books before the weekend. So just imagine you get a calendar invite, it's last minute, you don't recognize the name of the other person on this thing, right? And then something in your stomach drops. You don't even know yet, but your body knows. So you get on this call or you walk into the room, and within the first 90 seconds, your title, your salary, your identity, and your 5-year plan are all handed back to you in a box. And the first thing that most people do in that moment is they apologize. I know. I know how that sounds, but it's true. They say, I understand. They nod along. They thank the person for the opportunity. They hold it all together while they're on the call or in the room, and then they go sit in their car for 20 minutes before they can even text their partner or their spouse. And then, this is the part that I really want to talk about. The next 24 hours start. And I want to talk about this not because of what you do, but because of what you believe in those hours. Okay, so we're talking about belief here because of the decisions that you make from that belief in those first 24 hours. I want to talk about this because of the trajectory that you set without even realizing you're setting it. Okay, listen, most people get this wrong. They get it completely wrong, and I don't mean wrong in a way that's their fault. I mean wrong in a way that's completely predictable, completely understandable, and completely fixable if someone just tells you the truth before it happens. So that's exactly what we're getting into today. That is hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. And I'm going to tell you this right now. This conversation is not about fear. It is about preparation. And there is a version of you that gets that calendar invite that I just talked about, and that version's not terrified. And it's not because you don't care about your job. It's because your job was never meant to be the only thing that you have going on for you. Okay? We are going to get into it today. So I want you to stay with me. If you haven't already, go get your water, your tea, your coffee, your juice, your lemonade, whatever it is you're sipping on. Because this is one of those conversations that just doesn't get had enough in this space, okay? So, we're going to continue with this visual exercise, okay? You have just been laid off. The call is over, or the meeting is over. The calendar invite, it is gone off of your schedule. And your badge might not work by the end of the day. And you are literally just sitting with this information. And the first thing that your brain does is go into what I call survival scanning. And survival scanning is when your brain starts to rapidly catalog every single financial obligation that you have in your life. So that could be rent, mortgage, your car note, the subscription boxes you forgot to cancel, all of your kids' fall activities, the credit card that you were almost done paying off. Your brain starts to run numbers in real time, and it does it with urgency, and it does it like in the most crisis mode way, because fear is not a good accountant, y'all. And from that place of financial survival scanning, people make the first wrong move. Like they make the wrong first move, because in that place of financial survival scanning, you immediately start job searching. Now, wait a minute. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that that sounds like the right move, and it's not exactly wrong. But here's what people miss. They start job searching from the wrong identity. Remember, I said we're talking about belief here, right? So you're not applying from a place of I have options and I'm being selective. You're applying from a place of I need to replace this income as fast as possible. And those two postures, they produce completely different outcomes, y'all. Because when you apply in panic mode, you undersell. You compress your salary expectations. You take the first interview that calls back instead of the best one. You see what I'm saying? So you're writing a cover letter that sounds like it was written by someone who's afraid, because it was. And here's the thing, hiring managers can feel that, y'all. And it's not always in a conscious way, but they feel it. Like there's energy in everything all around us. Even in a piece of paper, there is energy in that, okay? And the second wrong move, it happens a few hours after that. And that is when your adrenaline, it starts to fade and your feelings start to surface. And the feelings that start to surface, y'all, it's not just sadness. It's not just disappointment. Sometimes it's shame. SHAME. Because layoffs, they feel very personal even when they're not. Even when it's a company-wide restructure, even when everyone on your team gets the same call. It feels personal even when the person who is doing the laying off is visibly uncomfortable. Your brain will still go to, dang, what did I do wrong? What was I not good enough? Did they choose to keep the other person over me? And listen, that shame, it's low key. It's not usually dramatic, but it sits there behind everything you do for the next few weeks. It affects the story that you tell yourself about what you're worth. It affects the story about what you tell yourself about what you can ask for and what you deserve. That is the second wrong move, y'all. And it is letting the story rewrite itself without your permission. So the third wrong move that happens in the days that follow your layoff, and this is the one that I really want to dig into. And that is people start rebuilding the exact same structure, right? So the third wrong move is you are looking in the same industry, you're looking for the same or similar job title, and you're probably most likely looking at a different company with a little bit of a salary bump. But the structure of all of that, it is completely identical because it is still one employer, one paycheck, and one decision maker with the power to end all of your income on a random Tuesday. And I understand why this happens. And I'm not saying this from a place of judgment. I'm saying it from a place of recognition. Because when something breaks, your the most instinctive thing for you to do is to replace it with the same thing that broke, right? So if you break your favorite mug, what you gonna do? You're probably gonna go try to find the exact same mug to replace it, right? That's just a natural thing to do. If your streaming service goes down, you're going to call support to restore that service. If you lose your job, you're going to find another job, right? But your job is not a mug. It's not a mug. Your job is a financial structure, and a financial structure is a strategy. And if the structure failed, not because you failed, but because the structure itself has a single point of failure baked into its design, then rebuilding the same structure doesn't fix the problem, y'all. It just restarts the clock on the same structure. So here's the thing. The first 24 hours after your layoff, they're not about the job you lost. They're a referendum on the financial strategy that you've been running. And for most women, that strategy is one stream of income, one employer, and one plan. And that's not a criticism on anybody's choices here. That is an honest description of how we were taught to build a career. I was taught this, and I'm sure you were too. We were taught to go to school, get a job, get a promotion, stay loyal to the company, and trust the system, right? But the system wasn't built with your loyalty in mind. It never was. It never was built with your loyalty in mind. The system was built for efficiency. And when efficiency demands a headcount reduction, your loyalty doesn't factor into the spreadsheet. And I want to say that again because I really feel like so many of you deserve to hear this and you deserve for it to stick. Okay? The system was never designed to be loyal to you. It was designed to be efficient. And when efficiency demands it, your 15 years of contribution, your glowing performance reviews, your staying late and covering extra projects, none of that shows up on the line item that says reduce headcount. And I'm not being cynical, y'all. That's the system. That's the structure. And the women who understand this before that calendar invite arrives, they're the ones who don't spiral. And it's not because nothing bad happened, but it's because they already know that their income isn't tied to a single thread. They've been weaving something else alongside their income the whole time. So the question that I want you to really think about for the rest of this conversation is this: what are you weaving right now? And if you're taking notes, that's a very good question for you to jot down so you can go back and answer it later. And that is, what am I weaving right now? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I see the love on YouTube. I appreciate y'all. So I want to shift gears for a second because I think there's something happening underneath the financial conversation that doesn't get talked about enough. And that is, your job has been doing something to your identity for years, probably your whole career. And this isn't on purpose, and it's not in a malicious way, but in a structural way. Because every time you answer the question of what do you do at a dinner party, raise your hand if you name your job title and your company first. I'm the vice president of Wells Fargo. I mean, don't even know. I just made that up. But the point is, every time that you introduce yourself professionally, your title comes before your name in the mental hierarchy of this. So every time you felt proud of something at work, the pride was attached to your company's success, not just your own success, right? So over time, your sense of professional self and your employment, like your job, these things become so intertwined that you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. You can't tell. And that means when your job ends, your identity takes a hit too. And here's what I want you to notice about this. Nobody warns you that this is going to happen. Nobody is going to say, hey, just so you know, 10 years from now, if this company decides to restructure, you're going to lose your title and your sense of self in the same afternoon. Nobody's going to tell you that except me here on Nick at Noon. Because the whole system, it benefits from you tying your identity to your role. That is how this structure works. That is how this system works. It makes you a committed employee, right? It makes the threat of a job loss carry more psychological weight than it should. It makes you easier to retain. It makes you easier to motivate, and it makes you easier to manage. Listen, your professional identity being wrapped up in your job, it is not an accident. It is a feature of the employment structure. It is not a bug in the structure. So if this is the situation, right, then what's the alternative? Well, I'm glad that you asked. Because the alternative isn't to stop caring about your job. That's not the alternative, y'all. It is not to phone it in or to withhold your best work or to treat your employer with suspicion. The alternative is to build a professional identity that is rooted in what you know, not where you work. Let me say that again. The alternative to all this, it is not to stop caring about your job. It is not to phone it in or withhold your best work or treat your employer with suspicion. The alternative to this is to build a professional identity that is rooted in what you know, not where you work. Because there's a version of you that walks into any room in any industry with any audience and says, this is what I know, this is what I've done, this is what I can help you with. And that version of you doesn't need a badge, it doesn't need a title, it doesn't need a brand company name to say any of that. That version of you is an expert, it is not an employee. And the distance between these two identities, it is not as far as you think, y'all. Because here's what's true. The skills that you have spent years building inside somebody else's company, they don't belong to that company. Your company is paying you to use your skills. But the skills themselves, I'm talking about the pattern recognition, your leadership, your ability, your systems thinking, your client management, your technical knowledge, your ability to see a problem and build a solution around it, all of that is yours, y'all, because you built it. You built it over years. You built it through hard work. You built it through hard lessons and figuring things out that nobody told you how to figure out. All of that is yours. Your employer, your job, they are renting access to your skills. They don't own your skills. And when they handed you that box on the day that you got laid off, guess what? They gave back access to your time. But the skills you walked in with every single day in that job, those are leaving the building with you. They're leaving the building with you. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Now I want to flip this around because the identity piece, it goes both ways, right? So when you're still employed, when your job is good, when your salary is comfortable, when your benefits are solid, it can feel like the skills you have are only valuable in the context of where you're using them, right? Like, of course, you're good at what you do. You're inside the machine that uses you, right? But when you remove that machine, suddenly there's this terrifying question and you're asking yourself, am I good at this or was I just in the right place? And I'm going to answer that for you. You are in the right place and you're good at it. Those two things, they're not mutually exclusive, y'all. Because the skills that make you valuable inside somebody else's company are the same skills that are going to make you valuable outside of somebody else's company. And the gap in this is not your ability. The gap is in the packaging, because you've never had to sell what you know directly to someone who's paying you for your knowledge, for your skills, because the company, your organization, they're selling it to you. They bundled it with 40 other people's labor and then they called it a deliverable. But what if you could package all that yourself? What if you could package that yourself? What if packaging is the thing that you build alongside your career before the calendar invite arrives? The women who navigate layoffs with the least damage, they're not the ones who hustle harder after it happens. They're the ones who built something before it happens. And that's not a motivational line, y'all. That is just practical strategy. And it's exactly what I want to talk about next, okay? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I see the love on YouTube. Happy Monday. Happy New Week, y'all. So I want to talk about financial architecture here because I think it's a concept that sounds very corporate and boring, but it's one of the most important things you're probably not thinking about right now. So financial architecture is just, what is your income structure and how many ways can it fail? And for most women, you have a single source income structure. Again, you have the one job, you have the one paycheck, you have one employer who has the ability to change, reduce, or eliminate your income based on factors that are completely outside of your control. And we've been taught to compensate for that vulnerability. We've been taught to compensate for all of what I just said with the savings, right? We're told to save. We're told to build up emergency funds. We're told to make contributions to our 401k. We've been taught to compensate for that vulnerability with benefits packages. And let me be very clear, all of that is very smart. All of that is very valuable, and none of that is wrong. But those are shock absorbers, not an alternative structure. Because an emergency fund, it tells you how long you can survive the income stopping. It doesn't prevent your income from stopping. It doesn't give you another income that when that one that you're depending on goes away. It just buys you time inside of the same single source structure. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down here? Now, I want to say something else that might rearrange some things and some thinking for you, okay? The wealthiest people that I know, literally had a conversation about this morning with my husband about the wealthiest people we know. They are loaded, y'all. So the wealthiest people that I know, I'm talking about the ones who seem to weather economic downturns and layoffs and industry shifts. They are usually never operating on a single source income structure, right? These people that my husband and I were talking about this morning, they were not operating on a single source income structure. And it's not because they have more money than us or more money than you. It's because they understand that sources of income, like anything else with a single point of failure, when you have one single source, it is fragile by design. Like there's no diversity, right? Rental income, investment dividends, consulting arrangements, product revenue, coaching clients, speaking fees, these aren't bonuses on top of a real income. These are what make your income structure resilient, okay? Now, I'm not telling you to go buy rental properties unless that's what you want to do. And I'm not telling you to learn the stock market. I'm not giving you a list of passive income tactics from 2019. What I am saying is that women have one asset that is wildly, like crazily underutilized as an income source, and that is your skills. And coaching, which I know can feel like a word that gets thrown around a lot online, that is one of the most direct, lowest barrier, highest return on investment ways to monetize your skills, how to monetize the knowledge that you already have. And I want to be very specific about what I mean, because coaching is a word that can mean 100 different things, right? What I'm talking about is knowledge transfer for compensation, trading your skills for income, turning your skills into income. All this means is you know something that someone else is willing to pay to learn faster than they'd figure it out by themselves. That is coaching. And it doesn't require a certification. It doesn't require a massive following. It doesn't require a studio setup or a team or a logo. All it requires is for you to be genuinely ahead of someone else in an area that this other person cares about. And you need to be able to help them move from where they are to where they want to be. And you've been doing this already for free. Every single time that you've mentored a new colleague, every single time someone at work said, you know what, hey, can I pick your brain for a second? Every single time you trained someone on your process, walked a client through a framework, or solved a problem in a way that your organization couldn't figure out without you, you were coaching. You just weren't charging for it, y'all. So here is the architecture shift that I want you to really think about. What if, just roll with me with this one, okay? What if along your 9 to 5, you started building one additional stream of income based on the skills that you already have? What if they could pay you whether you go into the office or not? Now, I'm not talking about replacing your salary, and I'm not telling you, and definitely not talking about quitting your job, or I'm not even talking about building a full-time business. I'm not talking about building the full empire. All I'm talking about is just adding one additional stream of income that doesn't have a terminate employment agreement clause attached to it. Because here's what changes when you do that. You will stop applying to jobs from panic mode. You'll stop compressing your salary because you need the money now. You'll stop tolerating work environments that drain you because you're not financially dependent on this environment to survive. You will negotiate from a different place. You will evaluate opportunities with a different lens. You will stop asking, how quickly can I get another job? And you'll start asking, does this opportunity align with where I'm building? And that shift in your posture, that is the financial architecture upgrade I'm talking about. Let me upgrade ya, okay? Here. Because here's the part that surprises most people when I say this out loud. You can start building your next stream of income right now, this week, today. You don't have to wait until after you're laid off. You don't have to wait until after you save up enough money. You don't have to wait until your kids are older or your schedule clears up. You can do this right now with the job that you're doing, with the skills you already have, and in a structure that doesn't require you to start from scratch. Because you're not starting from zero. You're starting from years of experience. You're starting from years of institutional knowledge, professional credibility, and a track record that somebody somewhere would pay a premium for you to teach them. The only thing standing between you and a second stream of income is your belief that your skills have to live inside a job description in order for it to have value. And that's not true. It never was true. It never was true. Hello. Thanks for joining. I see the love on YouTube. So I want to take a second to address the thing that some of you might be thinking right now. And that is, you know what, Nick? I hear you, but coaching? Are you serious? I don't even know if that's for me. And I want to just take some time to talk about this for a second because that feeling is really specific, and I think I know where it stems from. Because when most people hear coaching, they picture one of two things. They either picture the life coaches that they've seen online who post aesthetic flat lays and talk about abundance mindset, and that feels a little bit fluffy and performative, and it feels so far away from the kind of professional that you see yourself as, right? The other thing that pops into people's mind is executive coaching. And that is the six-figure consultant that is brought in by corporations with a doctorate degree and 20 years of C-suite experience, and it feels completely out of reach for you, right? But neither one of those is the type of coaching that I talk about. The coaching that I'm talking about, it lives in the middle of those two, right? So it could be, think about a supply chain analyst who has spent 12 years figuring out how to make vendor negotiations work and who now helps smaller e-commerce businesses build procurement processes they couldn't afford to hire internally. That's coaching. It can be an urban planner who understands community zoning policy inside and out, but also coaches neighborhood developers on how to navigate public comment processes that usually stall projects for years. All those P's got me tripped up. That's coaching though. It's a technical writer who's been translating complex documentations for non-technical audiences for a decade, but she also helps SaaS startups build their help content without hiring a full-time writing team. Listen, none of those examples that I just gave, none of those people had to invent anything new. None of them had to get a new credential. None of them pivoted into a new career. All they did was take what they already knew, they wrapped it into an offer, and then they found someone who needed exactly that knowledge, that skill, right? That is coaching. That right there is the accessible version of coaching. That is the version that is available to you, me, he, she, all of us. And here's the piece that I think gets missed in most conversations about this. Coaching doesn't require you to know everything. It requires you to know more than the person that you're helping and help them get specific. It requires you to get specific about the thing that they care about. And that bar is much lower than most people are setting it to be, because you don't need to be the world's foremost authority. You need a published body of research. Or you don't need a published body of research. You need a published body of work. You don't need 10,000 followers or a podcast with impressive download numbers. All you need is someone who is 6 months behind where you are. You need someone who wants to get where you are faster, and you need someone who will pay you a premium to close that gap. And that person exists. This person exists in every field, and this person exists at every level. And here's something else that I want you to think about. The women who struggle to see themselves as coaches are usually the most qualified women in the room. Because the more expertise that you have, the more you underestimate how much other people don't know what you know. Because you've been living in your skills, you're too close to the work. You've been living in this for so long, it just feels like you're breathing air. It feels like air to you. It feels normal. It feels obvious. It doesn't feel like it's worth charging for. But to someone who doesn't have your skills, your obvious is a paid transformation for that person. And there's a term for exactly what I'm talking about, and it is called the curse of knowledge. Google it, the curse of knowledge. And basically what it means is when you know something so well that you genuinely cannot remember what it felt like not to know it, that curse is the reason that so many brilliant, capable, and highly skilled women have never once considered that people would pay them for what lives inside of your head. So no, you don't have a knowledge or a skill gap. You have a packaging gap. And packaging is a learnable skill, y'all. I'm talking about turning what you know into an offer, into an experience, into a result that someone can purchase. I'm not talking about talent, I'm talking about skill. And this means that it's available to you. So I want to clear something else up because I'm giving you the what here, okay? I'm giving you what I've told you what coaching is. I've told you what coaching can look like. I've talked about why it's more accessible than you've been told, right? So I'm not walking you through exactly how to build your offer. I'm not talking about how to price it. I'm not telling you how to find clients. I'm not telling you how to structure your first coaching container, right? Because that level of detail is the work that we do inside of Ignite. But I want you to have the conceptual shift here before we get there. Because the block for most women, it isn't, I don't know how to build an offer. The block is, I don't believe what I know is even worth offering. And that is what we're dismantling today. Because what you know is worth money. And I don't mean hypothetically. And I don't mean eventually. I mean what you know is worth money right now, today, at your current experience level, with the knowledge, the skills, the expertise that you already have. Listen, y'all. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. The market for skills-based coaching is not theory. It is funded. It is a multi-billion with a B dollar industry. This thing is funded, it is growing, and it is full of women who are exactly where you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. These people are desperately wishing someone with your background could just help them get from point A to point B faster. And you could be that person. And the question isn't whether or not you're qualified enough. The question is, are you going to keep giving your best thinking away and building somebody else's company when that company can lay you off on a random Tuesday? Or are you going to start building something that belongs to you? I want to introduce you to a word that I think changes everything about how you approach your career from this moment forward, and that is optionality. Optionality means that you have more than one real path available to you at any given time. And it doesn't mean that you're on all these paths at the same time. It just means you could choose to be if you wanted to. And right now, for most women operating on one single stream of income, optionality is a theory. Like, sure, of course, in theory, I could go do something else. You could go do something else, right? But financially, practically, the ability to make that choice, it is constrained by the fact that your job is the only thing that's paying you right now. And optionality changes that math. Because when you have a second stream of income, even if it's modest, you're not financially hostage to this company or a decision that's made by somebody else. And that freedom that comes with that, it doesn't just show up when you need it. It shows up every single day in how you carry yourself. It shows up in how you negotiate. It shows up in what you're willing to tolerate. And it shows up in what you're able to walk away from. Here's the thing. Most people treat financial independence as a destination. They treat it like it's something that you arrive at after years of saving, or after years of growing your business big enough, or after your career has reached its peak, right? Most people treat financial independence as a destination, like it is something in your future. But I'm talking about optionality. And that's not a destination. That is a structural condition. And you can start creating optionality right now in whatever season you are in your life, with whatever time and resources you have. See, the goal here is not to build a full business overnight. The goal is to start reducing the percentage of your financial life that is dependent on one decision maker. Even if that percentage moves from 100% to 85%, guess what? That is movement. And that is real optionality starting to take shape in your life. Now, here's the thing about building a coaching income stream that I think surprises a lot of people. It doesn't require a huge investment to start. It doesn't require you to post every day or build a massive audience from zero. It doesn't require you to be available 24/7 or sacrifice the thing that make your current life work. What it requires is intentional setup. Okay? So if you want to get started in this, you need to have a clear offer. You need to have a specific person that you're serving. You need to have a simple way for this person to find you and pay you. You need to have a way to deliver the transformation that you're promising. And that is the minimum viable structure in this, the MVS. And when you have this structure, even at its most basic level, something starts to change because you start to see your skills through a different lens. It's not just what does my job need from me this week. You start to see it as what do I know that has value in the market that is independent of this job. All the ladies independent. Okay? You will start to notice things differently, right? Because conversations where someone is struggling with something that you solved years ago, think about it. Problems in your industry that people would pay to have navigated faster, think about it. Gaps in what's available to people who are earlier in their career than you. Listen, you'll start to see opportunities all over the place instead of just obligations. And that shift in how you see your world, the world that you live in, that is one of the most underrated benefits of building a second stream of income. This is not just about the money, y'all. The money is real. We like it. We want it. But it's not just, it's deeper than the money. This is about who you become in the process of building this thing. Because here's something that I have watched with my own eyes happen over and over and over with the women that I work with. They start building a stream of income, a coaching stream of income alongside their career. And then at first it feels like a side project. It feels like an experiment. But then somewhere in the middle of building this thing, they stop asking, how do I make this work? And they start asking, why the hell didn't I do this sooner? And it's not because this is easy. Let's be very clear. Because just like everything else worth building, this has a learning curve. But they make this shift because the process of packaging what you know and seeing someone else grow from it is the kind of work that feels aligned in a way that most of us haven't felt inside of our careers in a long time. Listen, you can care about your career and want more for your life at the same time. Those are not contradictory positions, y'all. They are the definition of ambition. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. And I want to talk very specifically about timing because I hear this all the time. I'll start when things calm down. I'll look into this when I have more bandwidth. I'm going to get through this next project cycle and then I'll give this some real attention. And I understand that and I lived it. Hello. Raise your hand if you feel me. But here's what I know from watching this pattern more than enough times that I can count. Things in your life are not going to slow down. They're not going to calm down. Bandwidth doesn't just randomly, magically appear on its own. And the project cycle ends, but guess what happens when that project ends? Yep. Another one starts. And the women who successfully build their second stream of income, they don't wait for a clear window. They build a system that fits inside the window that they already have. And that system is exactly what Ignite is designed to walk you through. How to find your through line, how to structure your offer, how to identify who you're serving, and to start generating income from what you already know. We do this in 12 weeks. You do it alongside your career, and you do it without starting over. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I want to take this conversation back to the top where we started. If you missed that part of the conversation, you're joining live, I encourage you to watch the replay of this episode on my YouTube channel. So, that Tuesday morning, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning that I talked about, that last minute calendar invite, the meeting that changes the whole game for you, I want you to imagine two versions of the woman who gets that calendar invite. So the first version, the first woman, she has one stream of income. Her full financial life is attached to her job. She's been performing well. She has good reviews. Everybody likes her. And guess what? None of that matters in that meeting. Because when that meeting is over, she doesn't have any other income. She doesn't have a secondary structure. And every financial decision she makes for the next several months will be made from a place of fear. She is going to go find another job and it'll be fine. But she's going to rebuild the exact same structure and restart the exact same clock. So the second woman, she gets the same call. She gets the same calendar invite. She also loses her job and it also hurts. I don't want to pretend that this version of this conversation doesn't feel something, because when it happens, you feel it regardless of where you are with your income diversification strategy. But when the meeting ends for this lady, she has a coaching roster. She has clients that are paying her every month for work that has nothing to do with her former employer. She has a stream of income that doesn't disappear when somebody else decides that she's a line item. So she negotiates a better severance package because she can. She takes time before she starts applying because she can afford to. And she goes after the role that she actually wants instead of the first one that responds, because she has options. See, I'm talking about both of these women experienced the layoff. But there's two completely different outcomes here, right? And the difference between those two women, it's not talent, it's not luck, it's not timing. It is one decision that one woman made before the call, before the calendar invite, before that meeting came. And that is the decision to build something that belongs to you. And I want to talk about how we build this together, because I am not going to sit here and give you a concept without giving you a path forward in this, okay? So I want to tell you about Ignite. Ignite is my 12-week group coaching program, and it is designed specifically for professional women who are ready to build a skills-based coaching business alongside their career. Not after you quit your job, not after you figure everything out first. I mean, alongside your career right now with the schedule that you already have. And here's what we do inside of those 12 weeks. We're going to start with what you know, not what you wish you knew, not what you're planning to learn next year. We're going to start with what you already know right now, from the career and the life that you've already built. We're going to identify the through line. So this is the place where your skills, your experience, and the problems other people are willing to pay to solve, that's where all of this intersects. And that intersection is your offer, and then we build your offer. We build your coaching offer. We build what it includes, who it's for, what the transformation is, what it costs. We build the positioning around it. We build how to talk about it, how to show up in the market with it, how to attract the right clients without needing a massive social media audience to do this. We also build the back end of your business. And that is, how are your clients going to find you? How are they going to pay you? How do you deliver the work in a way that doesn't consume every available hour that you have? We build a structure that makes sense for this business, not a freelance gig. That's not what I'm talking about. And then, because this is the part that I care most about, we get you income. Not hypothetical income, not projected income. I'm talking about you will have actual clients paying you for what you know inside of a framework that you have built with strategy and intention. 12 weeks, real results alongside your career. So let me talk just a little bit about who Ignite is for. Ignite is for you if you have been thinking about the idea of building something for longer than it feels comfortable to admit. Are you in the building? If you know that you have skills that have value beyond your current job, Ignite is for you. If you are tired of having your entire financial future hinge on decisions that are made in a conference room that you're not invited to, Ignite is for you. Listen, Ignite is for you if you've looked at what other coaches are doing online and you thought, you know what, I can do that, but I have no idea where to start. That is the starting point inside this program. Ignite is for you if you're doing well in your career and you want to keep it that way. But you're smart enough to know that doing it well and being secure are not the same thing when you only have one source of income. That is who Ignite is for. So here is who Ignite is not for. Ignite is not for someone who is looking for a get rich quick structure. If you want overnight results, I am not the person for that. I'm not your person. Ignite is not for someone who is not willing to do the work. Listen, the 12 weeks in this program, they are structured, they are supported, but you need to show up for these 12 weeks. And Ignite is not for the woman who's not ready to bet on herself, because at some level, building a second stream of income is an act of self-investment. So it requires to look at what you know, what you've built, and what you're capable of, and say, all of this has value, and I'm going to build something around it. And if you're ready to say that, even if you're close, even if you're 80% there, and you just need the structure to get the rest of the way, this is your program. The next cycle starts on September 14th. Spots are limited. Ignite it will never be this big, massive experience. It is a small group experience by design, because results in this kind of program, it comes from the depth of attention and not the size of the room. So I'm not filling an auditorium here, y'all. I am building a focused, supported cohort of women who are ready to do this together. So if you want in, applications are open. They're open right now on my website at herincomeedit.com/ignite. You can click the link down in the description, or you can type Ignite in the comments, and I'll make sure that you get everything that you need, okay? So I want to close out this conversation. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I want to close this conversation with something that I say a lot. So if you've been rocking with me for a while, this might sound like a broken record. If you're new here, hello. Thanks for popping in. I say it because I believe it. And that is, your greatest financial asset, it is not your job. It is everything that you have learned while doing your job. And I want you to really hear that, y'all, because that is not a motivational line. It is a literal, strategic, and financial truth line. Your skills, your experience, your institutional knowledge, your professional reputation, those are not, they don't depreciate when you leave this company. They don't become less valuable when your title disappears. They don't require a new employer to remain real for you. What it requires is packaging. What it requires is strategy. What it requires is someone to show you exactly how to take what you've already built and turn it into something that pays you regardless of someone else's organizational chart. And that's what Ignite does. And what I know from every woman that I have worked with, the moment that this clicks, the moment that you go from, I wonder what this could be, to I'm actually doing this, that is one of the most powerful moments in a woman's life. And it's not because you became somebody new. It's because you finally started taking credit for what you already are and for who you already are. So before I get off, I want to say this. The day that this calendar invite comes, and I'm not saying it will, but I am saying none of us gets a guarantee that it won't come. When this calendar invite comes, who do you want to be on that call? Do you want the person whose entire financial future just got handed back in a box, or do you want the person who already has something and nobody can hand it back? Because you get to decide that. You don't get to decide it on the day that it happens. You have to decide this now, while your job is stable, while you have the bandwidth, while you have the runway to build with intention instead of desperation. And that decision is available to you today. And Ignite is how you make that decision. Okay? Head over to my website at herincomeedit.com/ignite. Click the link down in the description, or you can type the word Ignite in the comments and I'll make sure you get the link. September 14th is coming and seats are limited. I don't want you to let this to be another thing that you decided that you're going to figure out later, okay? Because you have figured out enough. It's time for you to build something. All right? I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I never take your presence for granted. I see you. I see the love. Thanks so much for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, drop them in the comment section. You can send me a DM on Instagram or LinkedIn. I hope to see you in this next cohort. I hope to see your application come through. Applications are open right now for Ignite. My name is Nick Scott. This has been another episode of Nick at Noon. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn your bell notifications on so you don't miss a beat. I am here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Mountain Time, and I talk all things strategy, tools, and mindset when it comes to building coaching income, digital products, and online businesses. So if that is something that resonates with you and something that you're interested in, like I said, join me for the ride, all right? I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.